I'm Shawn.
And I'm Mike, and you're listening to
Shawn and Mike Take a Hike.
So what are we talking about today, Shawn?
Today, I think we're going to talk about trekking poles.
Yeah, this is one that you've been wanting to talk about. You've got strong feelings. You've got strong feelings about this one.
I have very strong feelings, and I have been wanting to talk about it. I feel like this is going to be, like, if we have an episode where people are going to write in or send us comments, I feel like it's going to be this one. Because I have a lot of questions. Maybe I have more questions than I have strong feelings about it, but I have strong emotions about trekking poles. So you and I have trekking poles.
We do. We took them on one trip that I recall. Maybe we took them on two.
I think I took mine on two, but my second time, well, that gets into the whole thing. So first off, trekking poles, right? Okay.
Right. What are they?
I don't get it. This is why I have strong feelings about it.
When you were a kid, you always wanted to find that perfect walking stick. You're in the woods, you find that perfect walking stick, and you held on to that thing. Well, at least I held on to that damn thing all summer. Like, just wanted to have the perfect walking stick. No idea why. It didn't help. It just... That's exactly my point, though. Right.
No idea why, and it didn't help.
Right.
So, when you and I started doing this, close to 4 years ago now, when we were doing all of our research about all the things, you and I both said, well, we can probably get away with starting without trekking poles. Like, that wasn't like a must-have for the first trip, because we've talked about it before. You're spending all this money. It was like, okay, what are like the must-haves, and then what are the, like, we'll get down the line somewhere. So we started with no trekking poles. You and I went on our first trip. No trekking poles.
No trekking poles.
I think we went, what did we go, like 23 miles that first time? What I would call, as far as Michigan goes, pretty rough terrain. We were in the Porkies.
Yep.
I know are not real mountains, but they're kind of mountains.
I mean, I answered a trivia question at one of our state parks. They had, like, what is the highest mountain range or biggest mountain range in Michigan? Right. And I answered the Porcupine Mountains, and I got it right. I didn't win anything, but I got it right. And so it was a trivia question. They're mountains. They're not the Rockies. They're not,
yeah, right. They're not the Rockies. They're not even the Appalachians.
Right.
They're small mountains, but I think they're mountains. But so we went 23 miles over.
There's a lot of elevation gain.
A lot of rocky, uneven terrain. Mm-hmm. We had our full packs on.
And I'll throw this in too. That was the first trip that we keep mentioning that we way overpacked food and way overpacked clothes. So we had extra weight than what we would take now.
That's a good point. Yes, exactly. So, first trip, no trekking poles, not a problem.
Yeah.
Was it the next one?
It was our next 3-dayer or 4-dayer trip. It wasn't our next one. Our next one was in the fall, and we just did the overnighter.
Right. So our next big trip.
Right. So our next big trip,
we had
poles for. We decided to give them a go. We found a decent price on them, and decided let's try them and see how it goes. Worst comes to worst, we just strap them to our pack and we don't use them.
Right. And so even leading up to that, I think what prompted us to get them is I talked to a buddy that I worked with that had our next trip was in Pictured Rocks. I talked to a guy that had now this was a younger guy, but he had went with his youth group with church or something, and so we got to talking one day when I found out that he was a hiker, and I'm like, all right, give me your hot take. Like, what's your hot take on trekking poles? And he's like, oh, I love trekking poles. Highly recommend them. They're great. Love them. Highly recommend. So we got trekking poles for our next big
I got
trip.
them. I didn't think I needed them. You were getting them, and you found a deal. I think they were $25-$30 somewhere around there, like for a little kit and everything. So I was like, well, I'm not going to be the one, like, if I'm struggling and you're just with your trekking poles just moving right along. I was like, well, I'm going to look like an idiot. And I was like, it's $25 or whatever. I can afford that. So I might as well bite the bullet, and can't let you get anything without me getting it. So.
Well, exactly. But, and I mean, we're saying that these are cheap trekking poles, but I mean, I guess I don't know what nice trekking poles are per se, but these are, lightweight.
Well, like you said, we got a deal on
grips,
them. We paid $25, but that's not the regular retail price. So,
yeah, right. So we get them. We go on this trip. I will say my experience with them, and I stand by this to this day. I think if you have mobility issues, trekking poles are probably a nice thing to have. If you've got maybe some balance issues, or maybe some, like, I don't have the best knees. I'm in my 40s. My knees are kind of shot, but I've got knees that are fully functional. But maybe if I didn't have fully functional knees, or, I don't know, probably some sort of hip problem, or maybe some weak ankles or something, maybe trekking poles are great.
Yeah, I took some notes. I was thinking about it a lot, knowing that this was going to be our topic today. I came a little bit more prepared than I normally do. That's one of my cons that I had, was that it was just added stress and weight to your arms. So you're moving along. I'm used to just walking. My arms are swaying free, all that stuff. I've got my pack on. My pack's a proper fitting pack. It snugs my shoulders nice. It hugs my back, and it's real tight on my waist. You feel it there, but it doesn't move. It's comfortable. So I don't feel the need to have that extra weight on my arms. It's just, I don't know, because it's extra weight, but then it's also, you've got, I don't know, I'm a short person, so maybe I've got 32 inches or however many inches of pole, but you're swinging that with every stride. That's more swing with every stride. So not for me. I have that a note down there is I don't find them necessary for me. But like you said, if you have stability issues, you need help going up. If you want that extra, like you can take the weight off your legs and be able to push down into the ground a little bit if you need to help getting uphill or downhill, or just around an obstacle, then the great.
I legitimately feel like I would have been better off for some of those super steep hills that we climbed that had a lot of elevation. I feel like I would have been better off over the length of the trip going up on my hands and knees had I needed to, rather than taking these trekking poles.
The other factor with that trip was that it was about 90% humidity, and it was about 95 degrees. So it was miserable conditions with no breeze. So there is that other caveat to it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the trekking poles helped that situation. Yeah.
No, I totally. I think it made it worse. Because like you were saying, so you're normally walking, right, or normally hiking or whatever, and you're swinging your arms, and these trekking poles were lightweight and everything, but you're still kind of like exaggerating your motion in order to get it in front of you to plan it where you need to plan it. So even if the poles weighed nothing, you're still exaggerating the way that you're moving your arms, which takes more energy. And I was exhausted after using them, in a way that I have never been on any other trip. And like you said, it was super hot, and there were other things working against us that trip too. But
Well, and another thing that I wrote down as a con, since we're kind of griping on them and everything, I'll go through my cons first. Um, another thing that I had written down as one of my cons was that it's just another thing you have to keep track of, another thing you have to store, like figure like when you're setting up camp, you have to. It's just another thing to have, like so. Everything. Yep. Is space taken up. Now, granted, most packs will have straps on the outside. You can tie them to like ours do. Ours didn't take up any space on the inside. For the last day of our trip, we just strapped them right to the side of our packs and said, "Screw them. I'm not using them." So, but we had to carry them out. So we didn't lose any weight, but we lost that extra motion on your arms. So it was easier. The day after using them. So it's not.
I would love somebody to write in or comment on the social medias or something like, what am I missing? Because I feel like I'm missing something because I see so many people out on the trails with trekking poles that I feel like I'm the one that's doing it wrong.
Yeah. A lot of the channels that I follow and a lot of things that I read is that they're not for everybody. They serve their purpose, but a lot of people don't use them. I'm not going to say we barely run into any people that use them, but the people that we camped with this past trip, that because we had the communal sites and fire pits and everything, they didn't use. None of them used trekking poles.
Is that true?
I don't recall seeing any trekking poles, but there may have been booze involved. So
yeah, I know. I think those people at which one was it? The whatever that campground was that we were at that was by was that Osable East? It was probably Osable East that we were at by the lighthouse.
By the lighthouse?
I think those people.
That was the Osable lighthouse.
Okay, yeah, so that would make sense. So the Osable Lighthouse, yeah, okay. But I think those people that were down kind of like at the bottom of the hill in the hammocks that didn't come out to the fire with us, I think they had trekking poles.
Well, I don't consider them camping with us because they were antisocial.
Well, they were antisocial, but whatever, be I don't hold that against them. Be antisocial, that's fine.
I don't like people either, but we met some nice people, so. But yeah, so those are pretty much the cons I had because I only have the one experience with them, and I realized pretty quick that they weren't for me. I'm not going to poo-poo on for everybody. If you use them, great. Write in, tell us what they do for you.
By all means, right?
Because I'm confused.
That's where I'm at. Like, if it works for you, that's great, and I'm not telling anybody not to use them. Mm-hmm. I go back to I really feel like I'm doing something wrong because people swear by them. Yeah. Like the guy that I worked with, he's like, "Oh yeah, you got to get trekking poles. They're great. You got to have trekking poles." And it's like, okay, well, my experience with them after using them, I don't get it. I genuinely am I doing it wrong? I don't. Even when I was using them. Now again, we're not used to using them, so. Maybe I just didn't have the method down, but I don't walk with trekking poles in my daily life. I don't use a cane. I'll be honest. I kind of had to pay attention to how does this work? Where am I sticking it? And mm-hmm. For that matter, there were people out there using them because you commented about all the holes in the ground.
Yeah, well, I had the feet on mine. I had the ours came with different things, and ours were to help preserve or not put holes in the ground. I had the little rubber feet on mine, so I wasn't leaving all that stuff. But you see all the time where they have to be just I don't know, they're picking up garbage. It almost looks like they're just you see the people on the side of the highway with their sticks and stuff picking up garbage.
No, I know.
So it's is that what they're doing out here?
You asked me, you're is this bugs or what is this? I'm like, no, that's trekking pole. Yeah. That's trekking pole holes.
Yep. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It takes me back to when I was a kid, I lived behind a very small ski hill in Michigan here, and we would my parents would just drop us off. We'd go skiing for hours. And everybody had poles, and I didn't know what to do with them, so I never used poles. Like this same thing, like poles on the ski hill. I have no idea what they're used for.
I kind of don't get that either. I'm not a skier, but like we in high school we did everybody paid $20 and we'll bus you to the same ski hill that you're talking about, and you can go down the bunny hill for a couple of hours or whatever, and I would see people, and I was one of the kids, I'm renting skis. I don't own my own skis. So you would rent them and they were like, all right, what size pole do you want? I'm like, well, I don't even know how to stand on these skis, let alone what size pole I need. So it's like, I don't know, hand me whatever. And even not knowing what I was doing with that, it's like, okay, I don't know where these go. Like, how do you move with them? And like, those seem to be in the way too. So yeah, it's same thing with ski poles.
Yeah. I just don't get it. I don't get they have to serve a purpose because they exist.
Oh, I think there's a lot of stuff that exists for no purpose, but
I guess there is that. But so I just don't know what they're. I don't get it. Is it a fashion? Is it a fashion statement? Is it just an accessory? Write in, tell us. I don't know. I don't feel that they're necessary for me.
I will say some of the tent setups that I have looked at over the years will work where you can use trekking poles in conjunction with the tent so that you can then use those poles as the poles for your tent. And I
have that on my list.
Well, so I still have questions. I think I have less questions about that. Like, if that's what you're going to do for your tent poles, okay, then I kind of get why you have trekking poles then. Although, for my money, I'd rather just have the regular shock cord tent poles and no trekking poles. But maybe, I guess, if you're the type of person that, like, you love your trekking poles to begin with, and then you can save your weight from the tent poles because you're already going to have your trekking poles. But then I go back to, like, why do you have your trekking poles? Like, because I still don't get it.
Right. So I'm in the same boat, obviously. But the one thing I'll say that from a lot of the things I've looked into with it is that you're correct. You and I have what is called a freestanding tent, and we'll get into that with our tents. We have a whole thing planned with tents, but we have what's called a freestanding tent, which comes with its own poles. Whereas there are now I'm drawing a blank on what they're called. They're not freestanding tents, where they require the trekking poles. They tend to be less expensive because you're not paying for the poles. You're just paying for the fabric. So there's that whole thing. So that's one pro of the trekking poles, is that if you want a trekking pole tent, then you'll pay a little bit less money. The downside of that, though, too, is that they're typically only single wall, and they don't have the vents and everything like we have in ours, so they hold on to moisture and everything inside the tent. So, like I said, we'll get into all of that on our tent episode and everything, but there is that pro that you could end up spending less money on a nicer tent if you have your trekking poles. So that's a pro that I have written down. It's, again, not for me, but it's a pro for trekking poles.
I don't know, so that sounds like a nicer tent. So maybe if you're spending the same amount of money, I don't know. I guess I just...
Right. So...
This is why I have strong feelings, because clearly I don't understand, nobody has been able to explain it in a way that I will understand. So that's why I have strong feelings about trekking poles.
Right.
And
Sean has strong feelings when he doesn't understand.
I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that is for the general public. I think people have strong feelings about things that they don't understand, and I can give lots of examples, but this is not that type of podcast. So
Right. Yeah.
I just don't get it. And like I said, I've said this before, and now I feel like I'm just repeating myself. But like, tell me I'm wrong, or tell me what I'm missing. Because
Right. Yeah.
if you're one of these people that is, oh no, diehard trekking poles, got to have your trekking poles. Like, please tell me what I'm missing, because clearly,
Right.
my experience with them was either abnormal or maybe it's normal. Maybe we're the right ones, and these people with trekking poles are wasting their money on something just so that they look like the cover of a catalog. I don't know.
But yeah, there could be that. Like I said, is it a fashion statement?
It maybe is a fashion statement. Maybe your trekking poles match your outfit. And look,
right.
You want?
I don't mind do.
If that is good enough for you to have trekking poles, because you want to be matchy and you know, do what works for you. I'm not telling anybody not to use them. Like if you're diehard about it,
right.
or even if you're curious and you think they might be for you, I'm not going to tell you not to buy them. I just don't get it.
Right. Again, we have never claimed to be professionals at this. We are simply. I mean, right now, we are more or less asking questions than providing advice.
Yeah, this is a very right. So, well,
for our 14 followers, maybe, and 3 of them we are in our household.
Maybe. So it's what is it? It's amateur hiking advice for amateur hikers. Maybe this is us asking for advice. Like this is what this episode is all about. Is please give me your advice.
Please write in and tell us what we're doing wrong.
Yeah. I mean, and then so I guess for anybody looking into trekking poles, for what it's worth, what Mike and I found when we were looking into them is there's a couple of different handle styles. There's natural cork versus synthetic. It's usually some sort of
plastic
or a plastic. What we found when we were looking, or what I found, I guess I should say, when I'm looking into it, was that most people recommend the cork handle. Did you find anything different than that, Mike?
No. I didn't do as much research as you did. I wasn't really... I kind of knew I was going to not like them, but I was not going to not try them. So I wasn't going to waste a ton of time researching them.
Yeah.
You found these ones that were like in the right price range, and I was like, well, it's only 20, 25, 30 bucks, whatever. I'll take a shot. So that's I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, but cork is a tested over time handle material for a lot of different things, so you can trust it. Synthetic cork, I mean, probably just as good, probably more expensive. Well, I don't know.
I don't know about the more expensive part. I mean, I can't quite honestly. I probably should have done some research. I feel like that's the theme of every episode, is I probably should have done more research, but
that's why I took notes this time.
I don't remember, like, they just were saying, like, the cork, like, it conforms to your hand better, and then, like, with your hands sweating, it, like, the cork kind of moisture wicks the sweat off. I don't know. They were just saying that the cork ones are better. And then they come with a bunch of different tips, or I don't think all of the different ones come with the variety of tips. Ours come with interchangeable tips. So you can have either the rubber foot. What I was reading was the rubber foot is what they want you to use in areas where they don't want you to impact the environment so much, because apparently the little divot holes that the pointy ends make in the earth helps. It's something with erosion and all the things. So if you're in an area that's kind of more protected, they want you to use the rubber foot. The spiky point is better, if you're really needing to dig in and you really need that traction and you don't want your pole to slip on you. And then the other one that ours came with was it came with like a little snow. I think snow is the other one that it came with, because it came with like that little, I guess I don't know what that piece is called, but you put it on in conjunction with the pointy tip, and then it's like a ski pole almost at that point, where it's got like that cuff around it.
That's what I was gonna say. It will poke through like a top layer if there's a little sheet of ice or whatever on the top layer, but it'll grip onto the snow so it won't dig as deep, so you can actually get traction in snow.
Which, now that I've been shitting on trekking poles for like the last 20 minutes or whatever, I would say you and I do not hike in the snow. you and I don't hike in the snow, but I almost wonder.
There's a light bulb. I just saw the light bulb.
Well, I almost think it might be nice if you were trekking in the snow.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I get it now. No, but
there are purposes.
Okay, so if you were in the snow or ice, and you had a pack on and it was like snowy and icy, well, okay, that maybe I get. Maybe that I understand, because I think you would have to be picking your feet up higher than you normally would. Plus, you got 50 pounds on your back, and you're off balance then. Okay, then maybe, but that gets back to the mobility issue. And I said I understand it if you have mobility issues.
Yeah. So this past weekend, I was out fishing, and on the trail that we take to get out of the river for salmon fishing, not just like out on a lake, we're on a river. And that hill, you've been on that hill going up to the road and everything. We were with some not so young people, and they have some mobility issues and breathing issues. And so I just told them they didn't have poles. Like, they're carrying their fishing rods out of the woods, but they didn't have trekking poles or anything like that. I just told them, just take half steps. You don't have to try to climb up this thing in 20 steps. Like, if it takes you 60 steps, that's fine.
Right.
So that's the one thing I found with going uphill is, instead of relying on my arms to help me with trekking poles, I'll take half steps. I find that my heart rate doesn't get elevated as high. I don't get out of breath as easy. And I get up the hill not as fast, but it's not a race.
I know, you told me that.
I just take little half steps.
You told me that this last trip. I think you're the one that told me, just take half steps going up, which kind of seems like a no-brainer, but I had never really thought about it until you said to do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. And it did make it a lot easier. I didn't find that I was like as nearly out of breath when we got to the top.
Right. You know, I don't know if it's guys being guys or just people being people or whatever, but like when you get to a staircase or whatever, you just want to run up and like do it 2 at a time.
Oh yeah, I'm like a 2 at a time on the stairs. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but then you get up to the top and your legs are more tired. You're out of breath more. You're exerting yourself more. You think you get up there faster, which you probably do. It's half the amount of time or steps, but at the same time, you exerted more energy. You're out of breath. Like, so it's the same kind of principle. If you just take it 1 at a time and take your time, it's.
I bet there's some scientist out there that would tell you doing steps 2 at a time does save you energy in the long run, even though it's like more energy per step.
Yeah.
I bet there's an equation, and I bet they would tell you, well, actually, it actually is better.
I'll probably get hate mail for this one, but it's probably the guy on YouTube that's not peer reviewed.
Oh, yeah, right. So, yeah, I don't know. So I kind of get the trekking poles if you're trekking in the snow.
Or it could, if you're in a situation or you know it's going to be muddy, things like that same kind of a tip with the snow tip could work in some mud or loose sand, things of that nature. So if you know the environment you're going into, they could work out in those situations. Okay,
so then the question becomes, for you and I, on a regular trip, right? Like on just our normal yearly 25-mile, whatever, is it worth strapping them to your pack and taking them? Do you think it's worth it? Not knowing if you're going to need them.
I am going to say no for me, because this past trip, we encountered that loose sand and some decent uphill with some loose sand. that I don't know if trekking poles would have made a difference. I can't say, like, okay, if it's in the wintertime and there's potential for snow and all that stuff, maybe. But just our normal August trip where there's, I'm going to say, a 0.5% of chance of snow because it's Michigan and there's always a chance that it can snow.
That's fair.
I'm probably not going to take them just because we don't have the difference in terrain that a lot of different areas have. Maybe that could be our problem too, is we don't understand. Well, we see a lot of people at trekking poles, but we talk to a lot of people that have hiked the Appalachians. They've hiked, out west in Washington, and for lack of a better term, the Oregon Trail. Like they've been out west, they've been out east, like to where they actually have elevation changes where, you and I'll bitch about. Oh man, we've got a 400-foot incline coming. Like that's nothing to 90% of the hikers out there. So we're used to, like, on a given day, like, yeah, we gained 100 foot. Like.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, you and I have never done like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. We've never been on those, so I guess I don't know. But I wonder what the elevation change is on a daily basis on those, because I think you're hiking. Yeah. You're not going to the bottom and then back to the top, are you? I don't think you are. So I wonder what a daily.
I mean, a lot of ours, we're hiking and we're going along. It seems just fine, and then all of a sudden you got a lot of uphill, and then you got a lot more downhill, and then you get to a little river crossing or a stream crossing or whatever. And I always make the joke of, like, why didn't they just build a bridge so we didn't have to climb all the way down here just to go right back up there?
Yeah, you and I.
Why couldn't somebody just build a bridge?
Yeah, you and I always call that, like, oh, we're getting to the bullshit.
Yep. Yeah, we're getting to the bullshit where we got all this uphill and downhill. Like I said, we're in Michigan. We don't have a lot of elevation change. It might be a 20-foot or a 40-foot change in elevation.
And I hear what you're saying, but also we are usually hiking near the lake. So we're at the point where the river has to be that far down.
I understand what you're saying, but we are also at a cliff. Well, the last 2 years on our longer trip, we have been at a cliff shore at the Pictured Rocks, to where that's hundreds of feet up.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. If you were at the Pacific Crest Trail, let's say, you're not.
Okay.
You're not at the lowest point of the river, because the river has a long way to get to the ocean still, or to whatever lake it's going to.
That's true.
I guess I'm just wondering, is it similar elevation change in?
So if you have experience with that, please write in also. This is just the please write us. We're lonely.
Yeah, I have questions. So if you want to write in, I have lots of questions.
We need friends and information.
I don't know. At the end of the day, my experience with trekking poles, I'm not going to recommend them. I'm not going to tell you not to use them. I am not going to put the Shawn and Mike take a hike stamp of approval on them.
The only other thing that I was going to say is that I have heard, I didn't experience this myself, but if you apparently use them the right way, they can help you when you're going downhill or uphill, help you alleviate, or I guess on a level plane or whatever. If you use your arms more, but again, it's exerting your arms, putting more, put pressure on your arms and everything, so you need more upper body strength, but it can alleviate some of the weight and pressure off of your back and your hips. So that is a pro for them. I think the better pro, though, is just get a very well-fitting pack. Spend a little bit of extra money on your pack that fits you, and go have it measured. Make sure you got a pack that fits you. I'm a small frame, and my pack is a small. I'm normally a medium in everything else that I buy, but my pack is a small frame, and it fits me perfectly. It hugs all the right places. It doesn't rub or anything on my hips. Everything is fine. It doesn't move. So I don't feel the need to alleviate any of that weight because the fit kind of does that for me.
See, and for me,
so that's my take.
I don't disagree with any of that you are saying. The only thing that I will say, the pro that I found with the trekking poles, if we're looking for a pro, is
I know you're looking for a pro.
So my thing with my knees, like my knees are fine. Like I'm not complaining about my knees, whatever. But I have always had a problem where, according to the doctors, I don't have the right amount of cartilage in my knees. So when I go downstairs or down a hill or down a ladder, my knees don't like to work right. In that, like, instead of it being a smooth motion, it's like a jaggedy motion. Where like
I noticed that when you're going down hills.
People have mentioned, like, when I come down off a ladder and stuff, they're like, "You weren't that high. What were you afraid of?" It's like, okay, I'm not afraid. My knees just don't work right coming down. So like I'm kind of like jittery coming down. So going downhill.
And you're also afraid.
Well, and I'm also afraid because I don't like to be up high. But whatever. But going downhill with trekking poles, I will say it was easier on my knees going downhill with my trekking poles. But having said that, I still don't know if it was that much better to make it worth the trekking poles. Like, because I'm not using the poles. Like, I didn't find that much benefit that I didn't feel the need to take them on the next trip.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Are you going to strap them to your pack and be like, oh, we're going downhill. Let me get my poles out.
Right.
Like all that.
Yeah, clearly not.
So, I mean, like I said, it's not a race. If you want to stop, set up your poles, get them all adjusted right and everything, go down a hill for 30 seconds and then put your poles away.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. If that's what you need to do,
well, and
I will wait.
I just know how my knees work. Like I correct that by going down, which, I mean, there's probably going to be somebody that writes in that says this is a bad idea too, but like I just wind up going down kind of sideways because I'm a little bit better going down sideways, just taking little baby steps going down that way. Yes, I understand it's probably a better way to roll your ankle and all that sort of stuff, but it seems to work for me. So
yeah, I would just say I've watched you go down the hills. I mean, you and I trade off front and back. Like I said, in previous episodes, I let you go in front so you get the spider webs.
Right.
But so I watch you go down hills, and you watch where you're putting your feet. I don't think it's any extra risk of rolling your ankle because I think more people that just walk face first down the hill, you're probably paying more attention to where you're placing your feet than the average person. So
and if
you probably have less,
and if given the opportunity, I use a small tree or whatever, like as like a thing to catch myself so that I'm not, which I understand is not always going to be an option, but where that's an option, I'll use a tree to like kind of lean on.
However you can comfortably and safely get down the hill, do it.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I mean, if somebody writes in and they've got a valid point, I guess that's fine. Again, please write us. But
Mike is lonely and Mike wants you to write in.
But however you get down the hill without, I mean, sand's falling. Like that's the not the way to get down a hill. I mean, it works, but it's not going to.
Well, it'll get you down the hill. It'll probably get you down the hill real fast.
But I just don't see there being a wrong way getting down the hill that makes it more comfortable on your body.
Yeah.
So if trekking poles are the answer, or if using a tree and going down sideways, or even crawling down backwards like you're a toddler going downstairs, whatever, however you need to get down the hill.
Scoot down on your butt if you've got to. I mean.
Right. Yeah. Whatever works. So some people might see you on the trail and laugh at you, but you got to remember 90% of the time you're spending on the trail, you're not going to see anybody.
Yeah.
So do what you need to do.
Well, and here's the bottom line. Everybody out there, for the most part, I mean, unless you're in just like a day use area or something, but realistically, for the most part,
right.
I don't find that people out on the trail are very judgmental about anybody else. Like, whatever's working for you, you're out here doing the things that everybody else is doing. So whatever you're doing, maybe I find most people that we come across on the trail to be very friendly and very like, hey, good for you. You're doing it. You're one of the, you're one of the people out here.
Yeah, you're part of the community.
Yeah, you're part of the community. So I don't personally find that people are super judgy.
They're either going to say, why the hell didn't I think of that to get down there? Or like, oh, I've been there. Like, you're so exhausted or you're hurting or whatever. You're going down a hill not the wrong way, but like an abnormal way, not just walking down the hill.
Right.
Somebody's like, yeah, I've been there. Yeah. So that's 90% of the people out there. You might get the a-holes that are just whatever, you're doing it wrong, whatever, they're not, but they're probably not going to tell you on the trail. They're just going to say good afternoon, good morning, whatever, and walk past you.
Yeah, they're just going to laugh at you when you get to camp. I mean, they're not going to laugh to your face.
Right. Yeah. So, but I've exhausted all of my notes. So I don't want to rag on trekking poles anymore because I know that they have a purpose for people, just not me.
Yeah.
Or you, apparently.
I don't want to rag on them. I just don't get it. And I just clearly don't get it. So tell me what I don't get. If you're out there listening and you have other opinions, tell me what I don't get. But if you're an amateur hiking looking for amateur hiking advice and you want my hot take on them, I wouldn't run right out and buy them.
And you're pretty able-bodied. If you need the stability help, get them.
Absolutely.
But if you are pretty able-bodied, then go without, see how it works without, and or get a deal like we got, where a cheap set, have them with you in case you feel you need them. Don't go spending. I've seen $200, $300 trekking poles.
Yeah.
Not for me.
I mean, or check with your local outfitter. Some of these local outfitters have rental equipment. You could always rent some if you're kind of on the fence about it.
Take them on your inaugural or second trip or whatever, and go for it. Yeah.
And again, if you know your body better than I know your body, you the listener, and you, Mike, know your body better than I know your body, but. So if you feel like you're going to need them, you know best. I certainly don't know the listener. I don't know what your requirements are. If you are even questioning, if you're thinking, yeah, I might need that assistance, well then by all means, please go get them. But for the general public that is able-bodied, without mobility issues and without stability issues, I don't know. I'm not sold on them.
Yeah. Yep. Until they make the trails ADA compliant, I don't know.
Which we do not have a whole episode on ADA compliance, but let me just tell you people, these trails are not ADA compliant. So Mike and I made several comments the last trip about, well, this isn't ADA compliant.
Not in the slightest.
Not even remotely. They are not. So if you're thinking they're going to be,
if you need ADA compliance to move about, then unfortunately the trail may not be for you. I hate to say that because the trail should be for everybody. It's so beautiful, but
okay, so I guess at the end of the day, that's all I have to say. Do you have anything else that you want to add about trekking poles, Mike?
No, I think we've ragged on them enough. We at least got some positives out there, and I'm happy about that because I don't just want to rag on something we know nothing about. So we had a negative experience with them, and that's our take on it. So take it with a grain of salt. Like Shawn was saying, if you're able-bodied, if you are able to walk up a hill, anything like that, even with 30, 40, 50 pounds on your back, then I personally am not going to recommend them. My recommendation is not worth a whole lot being an amateur hiker, but I don't feel the need to use them. Again, if you feel like you need to rent them, if you feel like you want to buy a cheap set or whatever, have with you just in case you run into terrain you may not know you're getting involved with, then go for it. I just, again, don't feel that it's for me. So that's kind of my 2 cents, our 4 cents, whatever you want to call it. But if you don't have anything else, again, please write us. We're at Shawn Mike Hike at all the socials and at ShawnMikeHike@gmail.com. So give us tell us what we're doing wrong. We don't know much about trekking poles. Tell us all you know about trekking poles. If you feel that strongly about them, we could revisit this topic and maybe have you on as a guest. Something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So,
I would say the exact same thing. Like, I am actively asking for feedback on this one, because if somebody can come up with a good something that I have missed, like I would love to be corrected. So reach out to us if you have drastically different opinions, or if we have missed something. We can always revisit this in a future episode if somebody gets with us and is telling us, well, you're wrong, and this is why they're great. Like, by all means, reach out and
things we never thought about, or whatever.
For sure. So, So, I guess with that, that's all I got, Mike.
Go take a hike.
Oh yeah, go take a hike, eh?